when it comes to purpose, you have to think about what exactly am I trying to accomplish? But also, what is my unique ability? Because when you figure out what your unique ability is, the things that you're doing are amplified.
Hey guys, welcome to the AlignUs Mastermind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nikhil Sharma, and I'm so grateful to have you guys here with us today. Today's topic is going to be about intentions and why intentions are so powerful. Joining us today are our two co-hosts. We have Kevin Drummond, who is a business growth and development manager, and we have Chris Garner, who is a health and fitness expert.
So, starting it off with the book recommendation.
Okay.
Not a couple months ago, I'd say maybe this was last summer or fall. I listened to an audio. It was Wayne Dyer, The Power of
Ooh,
Intention.
yes, I got two copies.
No way.
Yeah, the originals.
No way.
Yes,
So
sir.
I'm gonna cop the physical today. I need it. My spirit needs it. Um, I realized the power of intentionality over the weekend, and I realized that it's a force. And the power of intentionality, I think it can be confused with the power of manifestation or, putting your energy into something and getting a result back. But I look at it a bit differently. I look at intentionality, the power of intention, as a force that drives action, that leads you to manifestation. And I've fallen in love with it over the weekend, the power of intention. And I actually asked myself before we hopped on the call, what was my intention hopping on the call today? And my intention was to connect with two great fellas that I respect, um, learn from you all, give back to you all, and provide a platform for whoever is going to be tuned into this. So I just wanted to start out with that and let you guys know what time I'm on, because that's it's important to me.
It's very interesting that you started this with the power of intention because this morning, as I was meditating and I got out of my meditation, I was listening another book recommendation, one of my favorites, Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. I was listening to that, and he was talking about the importance of starting your day with a prayer or an intention for what your day is going to be like. Like today is going to be a day of abundance. Today is going to be a day in which I meet people that are going to change my life. And when you say it with enthusiasm. You charge those words with positivity. You charge it with belief because it all comes down to faith. And regardless of your faith or your denomination, in multiple texts, it says, for things to come into existence, you have to put belief and faith behind it. And you actually have to put yourself at the outcome that you're trying to accomplish. So if you're saying, wow, I'm going to meet someone today that's potentially going to give me the upper hand in me getting into the film industry. Like, what would that feel like? What if I actually met someone that's going to introduce me to the next biggest film production in New Orleans or in New York? Like, what would that look like? What would that feel like? You start visualizing it, you start feeling it, and you put yourself in that outcome. You don't know how you're going to get to that outcome, but you've now put that visual and that feeling out there, and it allows your brain to start doing what it needs to do. It starts changing your awareness, because a lot of times we miss out on opportunities because our awareness isn't peaked to the things that we're trying to accomplish. So when you're driving down the street, a great analogy, I'm not sure where I got it from. It might have been Ed Milet, but if you're just driving down the street from, let's say, point A to point B, from your house to your job, and you get to your job and someone says, hey, how many red cars did you see on the way to work? More than likely, you're gonna be like, I don't know, maybe one or two, because your focus wasn't there. But if that person from work would have called you before you left the house and said, hey, on the way to work, see how many red cars are on the way to work. Now your focus is on red cars. And if he asks you when you get to work, how many red cars did you see? more than likely you're going to have a better answer. You're going to have a more practical answer of, well, actually, I think I saw like around 6 or 7 of them on the way to work, because that's where your focus was. That's where your awareness was. So going back to the original conversation, if you put the things that you're trying to create into your awareness, now your brain, now your focus is on what you're actually trying to create. And your brain is more focused on making sure you don't miss out on opportunities that you're trying to create for yourself. So thank you for starting with power of intention. That's my gem for the day. Set intention, peak your awareness, peak your focus, and it'll actually cause things to manifest faster for you, because now your focus and awareness are on those things.
This is why I'm here every week. Oh, this is the reason, man. This is definitely the reason. Yeah. So today's topic would so we began, we're like on a journey. It's kind of like the game of life, or like a Monopoly board. Each time we're talking about something different. So the first conversation, we spoke about purpose. Second time around, we spoke about how to, I guess, keep that momentum going once you have gotten that purpose. And today's topic, where do we want to begin? I guess along that game board.
Well, I mean, when it comes to purpose, you have to think about, what exactly am I trying to accomplish? But also for me, especially like recently, it's like, okay, what do I want to accomplish? But also, what is my unique ability? Because when you figure out what your unique ability is, the things that you're doing are amplified, versus when you're trying to do something that's unnatural, when you're trying to force something, when you're working in your unique ability, everything flows. And so I think this might be a conversation for next week, but when you think about things flowing, sometimes that's misconstrued for everything should come easy. And that's not the case at all. You can be in flow and you can be in your unique ability and it still be an uphill battle, especially if you're trying to break ceilings of complexity and create things that your mind can't even fathom, right? The Power of 10X, that's another great book, another author as well, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who's an amazing author. I've read a number of his books, but he wrote a book called The Power. Oh, no, actually, the 10X is better than 2X. He talked about how the amount of time and effort that it takes to go 10X is actually sometimes easier than 2X, because you actually have to be more intentional with the things that you're doing than 2X. 2X, you really just have to do a little bit more than what you're already doing, and you'll, just by getting the reps in, go 2X. So if you're trying to go from, let's say, $100,000 to $200,000 in a year, you have to do the same activities, but just a little bit more, or maybe, take more calls, do more cold calls, or send more emails, or, put out more content. But if you're trying to go 10X, different strategies have to be employed, right? Different partnerships have to be created. Different tactics have to be used. So that's another great book as far as going 10X. But yeah, I definitely want to make sure that we explain to people that, yes, work in your unique ability, but just because you're working in a unique ability does not mean that it's going to be easier per se. You have to be more intentional. Take it back to the word intention.
I was just saying that, I think you hit the nail on the head with several of the things you said there, Kevin. I agree. I think that when you're kind of looking to, define your purpose, which I feel like each human should do, however often most individuals go through their entire life and they do not recognize what their purpose in life is, and they unfortunately pass away and they're not full, they didn't really fulfill what they were brought here, to do. I truly feel in general that each human has a specific purpose in this lifetime, and we have all been dealt like different type of, our hands are different when we start. However, we're all meant to travel our own unique journey. And what happens along the way is that we feel like our journey needs to be very similar to everybody else's journey, right? And we start comparing ourselves that, oh, I'm not married, I'm 30 years old. Why don't I have any kids yet? Why don't I have the big house yet? And that's where a lot of the guilt, shame, and all those other feelings start to occur, because we think that we all need to be a part of something like a society and this matrix that gets developed, I would say, to keep individuals, I guess, in a certain mold of thinking, when it doesn't necessarily coincide with what we're thinking inside of us, right? And so when we talk about purpose, we have to first define, like, who are we in terms of what are our character strengths, right? I remember when I first started this journey, I remember having to take there's a survey at this institute called the VIA Institute. And the VIA Institute is run by two individuals, one individual that who's very well known in the field of positive psychology. His name is Martin Seligman. And positive psychology is the study of positive emotions, positive being, right? Because psychology is the study of how do we get ourselves from a dark place or like a bad mindset to baseline. But 20 years ago, no one ever studied, like, how do you go from baseline to like euphoria or fulfillment, right? Like, that's the goal. Like, happiness isn't necessarily the best term, but they term it as emotional fulfillment. How do we get there, right? And so they have studied that for the past like 15, 20 years. And one of the main cogs in that is figuring out what your character strengths are, which when I did, but when I figured that part out, like, my number one is hope. Like, that's my top character strength. And then it's like zest, appreciation of beauty, gratitude, and integrity are my top five. So when you recognize that, those five character strengths are like your superpower, right? Like, I don't think anyone else has the same exact five strengths that are your top five. There'll be several similar ones, but I feel like most humans have their own mix. So when you understand that those are your character strengths, you can then apply that to what you're trying to accomplish, in your field and what you're trying to do, because it helps you better manifest the outcome that you're kind of needing to want to put out there. So once you identify your character strengths, and the other part, like we talked about last week, was about values, what your values are, then it's like you are more able to identify, hey, this is what my purpose needs to be. Because I feel like there needs to, like, at least for me, like, that's how it kind of all came together when I figured those things out. And and then I started trusting my intuition about, hey, for Alignness, I feel like there is something here. But it took me identifying those things about myself to kind of really allow Alignness to start growing, because I was growing, and that becomes very powerful. And I feel like when you're having a purpose in life, there's a fulfillment that comes over you, and there's an energy replenishment. In fact, one of Alignness's like hypothesis about energy replenishing is having a purpose. And whatever that purpose is, I think you have to be, like Kevin said, have to be intentional about it. Like, you have to say it out loud. You have to write that down, and be like, it's kind of like there's mission statements for companies, but there needs to be a mission statement for yourself. There's a practice where people do that. They'll write out, what is the mission for me, and it can change over time, but it's important that you identify what that mission and purpose is for you, and then notice how your life becomes more intentional. It becomes more powerful. You start noticing things occurring that you never even thought were possible to occur, just because you identified what your purpose was, align your mind, body, and soul with that, with the character strengths and values, and trusting your gut, and then you're setting intentions, like Kevin said.
It's crazy that you used the word mission, because that resonated. I never associated the word mission and intention, and they're synonyms, they're synonymous, right? Like, what's your intention for today? What's your mission for today? What is your mission statement for today, or your intention statement for today? And of course, when I thought of mission, I thought of Mission Impossible. And then I thought about how the Matrix tries to make you feel that, there's a such thing as, what's possible. I really don't feel that there's anything that's impossible. I think Mission Impossible is technically all of our lives. I mean, everything's impossible until someone does it, right? But Chris, you were gonna add in something before. He talked about character strengths, and Nick, I'm glad you said that, because I actually took the time coming back from Jersey on the plane. I shared this with Chris, figuring out what are my top 5 character strengths that adds value to other people, to this world, and allows me to stay within my unique ability. And it was a game changer, because once I figured that out, I was able to cut out a lot of the other stuff that I was doing. Because I feel like we're all bosses here, right? We've all learned how to wear different hats, how to do a lot of different things ourselves, but there is a top 5, a top 3 character traits or unique abilities that we have that separate us from everyone else. So I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, you were going to say something, Chris.
Y'all are on fire. We start off with that. Y'all are going in right now. Nick, I want to take that test. So yeah, let me know if there's any way.
Yeah.
I was going, I wanted to speak on this entire conversation. It seems like it's centered around turning the lens to yourself. You know, Nick, I mean, Kevin, you started it out with talking about how we compare. And when it comes to what our purpose is and our values, we compare to other people. And Nick, you kind of took it and ran with it. And we just turn that lens inward. We have to look at ourselves. And that is where we begin to compete with ourselves, and we stop competing with social norms. We begin to set standards for ourselves, kind of, back to what Kevin is saying about what are my top 5 strengths? How can I actually add value? And your confidence becomes formulated from how much have I improved from the previous version of myself, as opposed to comparing where you are, what you have with the rest of the world. That I think is so key, so pivotal. I was one of those people that asked myself, like, dang, why don't I have that car yet? Or how come my life doesn't seem as fun as that friend? Or, dang, I didn't ask for X, Y, and Z to happen to me. And all of those statements, what they have in common is that they are not based on my foundation and my story. And like you said, Nick, we all have been dealt a hand, and there is no comparison. There's never a comparison. We may come from similar walks of life, but we got different DNA.
Yeah.
That's what makes life so incredible. We have different DNA. We all have different strengths and weaknesses. Even if we have the exact same strengths, we employ them differently. I believe that nowadays the internet can be either an asset or it can be one of our greatest enemies, because it can help us to highlight what our strengths are in expressing them, but it also can deter us. So an action step, I believe, is kind of what you did, Kevin, is just asking yourself how you can provide value. Like, what are your top 5 ways to provide value? Blending in what your values are. Like your strengths plus your values. These are 2 legs that you can stand on, and these are measurable. So I know me, one of my strengths, probably like by far, is just connecting with people. I know how to have a conversation with anybody and remove any judgment, because at the end of the day, I understand that everybody wants to be heard, and it's not about agreeing with everything. It's about respecting everything, even the things you don't agree with. and I utilize that in my day to day. And I measure, okay, how well am I doing that? How well was I able to listen without judging? How can I walk the line of, giving my opinion and, adding value to a situation that I may not agree with specifically? That's a measurable, statistic for me. Kind of rambling with this one, but ultimately, I do believe it's very important for us to measure based on ourselves. We have to measure inward. Once we begin to measure inward, once that confidence is there, we as humans, we have this like sensor. We can sense a person that is wired and that is, just, whoa, you're in your own lane. There is no competition with you because that's your lane, and people begin to look at you differently because ultimately you look at yourself differently. You're playing by your own set of rules. And the last thing, I guess this is like a little addition to what I'm speaking on. It's another book recommendation. People, listen, this mastermind needs to be sponsored by all of the authors we are shouting out. U Squared, Price Pritchett. And he's
U Squared.
And honestly, it sounds similar to what you mentioned, Kevin, 10x to 2x. U Squared, Price Pritchett talks about you don't have to, you can skip levels, within your own right, but it's just important for you to know, you have to know inwardly what's going on. You have to know exactly what you would like, and you have to measure yourself by your own standards, and you can actually go up. You can use squared yourself. It's a very short book. It's literally only like 38 pages long.
Wow.
Incredible book though.
Heading to Amazon right now.
Incredible read.
Speaking of monetization, right? So that's one of my gifts, making money. I just want to drop this for everyone. This is something that everyone can do, because when it comes to recommendations in life, you're always going to take recommendations from other people regarding a certain book or a certain topic or a certain way of doing things versus the person kind of self-promoting themselves. So for example, you recommended the author is going to hold more weight than the author recommending himself. But every company has something called affiliates, affiliate marketing, affiliate programs. And what that is essentially is they'll create a link or even sometimes a landing page where you can sell their products or services. So in this case, Chris just recommended this book. Instead of me just going to Amazon, I'm going to say, hey, Chris, go on Amazon, create an affiliate link, send me your affiliate link. I'm going to buy the book anyway. Send me the link. And now I'm going to buy the book through the link. And now Chris is going to get paid by me buying that book. So if you're going to be, helping people out or, speaking on their behalf or their services or their products, why not make money from it too? Most companies do have these programs. And if they don't, you can actually add value to these companies by contacting them via email or getting on their social media and saying, hey, I love the stuff that you have, but I noticed you don't have an affiliate program. It's very easy to employ. I'd love to get on a call with you to talk about how you can do this and maybe we can partner on it. But I love your products. I love your services. And I think that, it'd be a great value offer to your consumers and another way for you to generate revenue as well as, give value to people everywhere. And when you do that, you're also amplifying your ability to put your product and your brand in front of more eyes. So that's my second gem for today.
I love it. It's good, man. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's podcast. Until next week, peace.